Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, and good morning. Here we are again. You hear it, you see it, you guessed it. It is day 2 of the Nightmares from Monkeypaw, a virtual symposium on the works of Jordan Peele and Black horror cinema. Just in time for, I was going to say, just in time for Thanksgiving. That's the wrong holiday. Just in time for Halloween. It's about to be Halloween. It's Halloween time. And we're going to kick it off with a great discussion on the works of what I would say is one of the most brilliant storytellers of this current day, Mr. Jordan Peele. I'm a huge fan of Monkeypaw Productions. Since 2017, when we first got wind of Get Out, Jordan Peele has been knocking our socks off with just incredible, innovative storytelling through suspense and just dynamic imagery, themes, and just plain old good, what makes you kind of want to crawl up under the covers real tight at night. And, it's just a good time. And so we're here to celebrate that. If you were with us yesterday, you saw us open with an amazing keynote address from Mo Mashadi, amazing horror writer. She shared with us her research regarding Jordan Peele's work, as well as premiered. We had a world premiere of her short film Gemini, which was outstanding. From there, we went into session 1, where we had a deep dive into Get Out through the lens of 2 of our amazing professors, Professor Dr. Fred Bonner here at Prairie View and Dr. Heather Addison at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. They did a deep dive through their research into Get Out. And then we moved more into the story of us, Black horror in America. And Dr. Donald Deffenbach and Nicholas Smith took time to share with us their research as we looked at dualities and the history of Black horror cinema in America and its connection to realism. And then we moved into an amazing roundtable with many of our board members from the University Film and Video Association, where we discussed the importance of media education and its connection to higher education, in particular with HBCUs. We heard from Mickey Turner from the University of Southern California, as last week she hosted a conference at USC with many students from different HBCUs, inviting them to consider USC for grad studies, but more importantly, just an opportunity for these students to connect and network with each other. Today, we are going to keep moving forward with our amazing celebration of Jordan Peele's work and all things horror cinema and suspense and sci-fi and all the good things. One of my favorite shows growing up, and certainly still, anytime there's like a Labor Day marathon on television of the Twilight Zone, I'm always on it. I love the Twilight Zone. Every time I do a binge, looks like some point in the middle of the night, I'll have a dream that feels like it should be in the Twilight Zone, keeps me up and freaks me out. And then I want to do it all over again. It's like an amazing amusement park ride. And today, our amazing Chrissy guest from Ithaca College is going to present her work, Twilight Zone crossover project from Ithaca College. She's on standby, but before I get to Chrissy there at Ithaca College, I just want to make sure you all know that you can see all of our programming at KPVU-TV.org/symposium. It's there on the flyer, but throughout the day, we're going to put up, the banner here so that you can see it. We'll remind you in various ways. Also, during the presentation, if you have any questions or comments that you want us to share on the screen, just as you see with this bubble here, if you leave a comment in YouTube, if you leave a comment on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you're watching our broadcast, we will get that comment and we'll be able to share it with other viewers who are watching in real time. Certainly, if you have any questions for our Q&A session, we'd love to have you drop your question into the comments and then we will ask it during the broadcast. We will also ask during the Q&A, what's your favorite Jordan Peele movie? How do you choose? That's the better question. That's the question I should post up on the screen. How do you choose? But at any rate, I want you to think about that, because during the Q&A, I'm going to ask Professor Guest that question, and we will also put that question to you all. Of course, all of this is done in great partnership with the University Film and Video Association. Our new HBCU initiative is one that is dear to my heart, because I am here at the campus of Prairie View A&M University. We are an HBCU, a historically Black college and university. We are an 1890 land grant school. There's a whole conversation we can have around that. But what that means is we are designated in the state of Texas as the sister school of our 1876 school, which is Texas A&M, as being a land grant school. And we benefit in many ways as being designated as the premier HBCU here in Texas. That said, we are in homecoming. It's our homecoming week. I had on my purple and gold yesterday, which are our school colors. I love this outfit that I have on today. I would show you my whole outfit, but I made the grave mistake of wearing a red top today. I should be wearing my orange and blue in celebration of our Houston Astros going into game one of the World Series against the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Phillies are rocking red today. I'm not rocking red today for the Phillies. I'm rocking red because I look good in it, but go Astros all the way. All right, enough of that. I want to get to this amazing presenter today, who is going to present. Actually, I'm just going to bring her up. I am going to do a proper introduction in a minute, but she is standing by. She's got this brilliant smile on her face, and I just want to catch her while she's got this great energy going before she gets into her research. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Chrissy Guest from Ithaca College. Hey, ma'am, how are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored.
Of course. Thank you. With your research and the work that you're doing there at Ithaca, there was no way we could do this work without you. Thank you for being a part of the planning process of this virtual symposium. Thank you so much for contributing your research to this symposium. And thank you so much for all that you do in the name of film and television education there at Ithaca. I have to come visit. It seems like every time I go to upstate New York, anywhere in New York, quite frankly, I seem to kind of miss the Ithaca area. So I hope you would extend an invitation to me so I can come hang out with you a little bit and play in your sandbox up there.
Anytime. You come anytime. It's beautiful right now. It's, as they say, Ithaca is gorgeous because we have all the waterfalls and the gorges, and it's fall time, so the leaves are just it's breathtaking.
Oh wow! Say less with the waterfalls. I anywhere I can go see a waterfall, I'm there. I am there. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to turn things over to Chrissy. Before I do, I just had your bio on my screen, and then I just clicked away from it, and that's what tech does in live television. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn it over to Professor Chrissy Guest there at Ithaca. And then at the end, I'm going to grace her properly with a proper bio so that you all know all the amazing things that she has going on there in upstate New York. Without further ado, Chrissy Guest.
Thank you so much. Well, I am very honored. One of the things I love to talk about is the Twilight Zone, and Jordan Peele's work in this area, like all of his work, is just so inspiring. He just captures the essence of society so clearly in the episodes. In 2019, the Twilight Zone reboot, we call it here, because we have at Ithaca, we have all of Rod Serling's original episodes. We have his archives. So we're big Twilight Zone fans. And we weren't sure what was going to happen. And of course, then they said Jordan Peele is doing the work. I was like, well, it's going to be exceptional. It's going to be exceptional because he just has such an understanding of not only the human condition, but what's happening culturally and in society, and how to move that dial in the way any filmmaker does, through story. So I want to first acknowledge that Edit Media, which is an initiative that's also partnered with UFVA, is is something that I was really honored. I submitted, this was an assignment originally. It's the work I've been doing with the Twilight Zones, but I created a production assignment. I think oftentimes in our production classes, the thought is there's not a lot of research, and that is so far from the truth in a lot of cases. And so I was very honored that this particular assignment that I'm going to go over with you, that encapsulates all of the research that I have been doing, and then the things that I infuse into my curriculum, all of that has been also showcased on Edit Media's site. And to get their stamp of approval was also such an honor. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is using television production to engage students in archival research, character development, and social conscious storytelling. And so, and who better to feature when we're talking about those subjects than Jordan Peele. But before we can get to Jordan Peele, we have to kind of foundationally set the stage. So let's look at the learning outcomes that I have for the course, just to give you an idea of some of the things we're kind of stepping through during our discussions, and then ultimately what we're putting into the productions that the students produce. So for the learning outcomes, we demonstrated knowledge of the various research processes in story creation. We demonstrate knowledge regarding social justice, media creation, and its role in society today. And then, of course, demonstrate knowledge of television series directing style, cinematic style, and narrative voice, and understanding of character development and its importance to series TV. So those are kind of foundationally the things that I'm doing in the course. But at the same time, I'm infusing screenings, I'm infusing writing and reading that they're going to then produce work. And we foundationally look at Jordan Peele's work to kind of get what ideas and inspiration we can to create their own Twilight Zone episodes. And the book that I use in class is Heroes and Villains. And it's a book by Mike Alsford, and he, in his research, is very philosophy-based, which I love. So Myths and Imagination is the first chapter, and it really dives into why we as humans make the choices that we make. And I think that's really it's really evident when we look at the episodes that we're going to kind of discuss and see how we, as humans make choices and what kind of guides us, and then what happens when we take away the social constructs that we all kind of abide by, and then what choices do we make as humans in those contexts. So the first episode that we really examine is an original Twilight Zone. It's from season 1 in 1959. This is Shot an Arrow into the Air, season 1, episode 5. And so we screened this episode in class. And one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is that because this episode is much slower, it can be a hard lift these days to sit through it, because the pacing is it's relevant to 1959. But there's other things when we start to examine this episode that students start to pull from it, which I think is really, really important. So the idea behind this is that they're on a spaceship, it's launched, and they crash land on an asteroid, or so they believe. And they're running out of water, and they don't know if anyone, it took four years to build the ship, so they don't know if anyone can come and rescue them. And so what happens to like a military run operation when the rules are out the window, or not really the rules, but the survival of the crew is in jeopardy. And it's kind of, when you start making choices that don't align with the rules of the society that you think at this point you've left. And so we follow the story of the crew that has crash landed, and ultimately one makes it after making some poor choices, but again, survival choices, and then finds out they crash landed to Earth and they're in a desert. What I love about this episode in talking about story and building towards what we're going to look at in Jordan Peele's work is, for everyone in the classroom, they're immediately able to say, okay, what does this relate to? And I talk about like The Walking Dead, like what happens when you're just trying to survive? Like what rules in society break down? What do we normally consider cultural norms that no longer apply because there's no one, to conform to. And so this really demonstrates that in the episode. The other thing you might notice in this episode is I've featured the main cast, and they're all white male. The entire episode is all white male, and I feel it's really important when I screen this for students to identify that kind of in the discussion, and to really understand that in 1959, what was happening at the time when Twilight Zones originally started airing. And that really sets the stage for how impactful and monumental Jordan Peele's work is in this space. So from this episode, we moved to then another episode that we screened from Black Mirror. This episode has John Hamm. It's called White Christmas, and it's from season 1 of Black Mirror. What I like is that there's multiple story layers happening. So students are going to start to identify themes, because we've kind of pulled that from them in that first episode. There's not as many themes. It's not as complex from the first episode that we looked at from 1959. But looking at this episode, we start to see some things that students start to understand the breadth and the depth of which they can take a story and kind of cross multiple themes over, because there's complex story happening. But then there's also representation. So when we look at the way women are represented in this Black Mirror episode, we can see what I loved in our discussions in class, because I do this every semester, but this semester in particular, is they really understood that the representation of women in this episode, every single one of them was considered, like they were in some of the original episodes of the Twilight Zone, to be mentally unstable. They were depicted in some way as not being completely there, or not having control, or being over the top. And I really appreciated that students were latching on to those concepts and seeing that even though we were hitting really important topics, things that they're interested in, like being canceled, and being able to block someone, and only having one type of viewpoint, and AI and other things that we were really diving into, because of the work that we did in the first episode of the Twilight Zone, and kind of saying, Rod Serling was really great at telling stories and really pushing the envelope for 1959. But then when we've jumped forward, what's happening here is right before the Me Too movement. So again, that understanding of like how time and what you're making media-wise captures what's happening in society. I think it's just fascinating. But then when we move from how women are represented, and we look and examine how AI is represented, one of the things that I found really fascinating was that students were starting to see how the AI was treated in this episode. The use of science fiction, the use of fantasy to create empathy, where you really feel compassion for the AI that's being controlled and really being tortured, to get them to comply and to serve the household. And immediately students started to understand that this is the power that they have using a lens to tell a story, is that they can cross something that someone can relate to, like simply talking about AI, and understanding historically how it would equate to something like slavery. And that was such a powerful moment. And so the work of that foundation of saying, hey, science fiction, anthology pieces can really push that envelope, is just remarkable. And I love this episode for that. There's a lot to unpack in this episode. I'm not going to do that because I really want to get to Jordan Peele's work. So looking now at Jordan Peele's reboot of the Twilight Zone. So this is season 1 of 2019. The episode that I chose is actually one of my favorites because of its power. I really feel that this is such a powerful episode, and that it is truly for Jordan Peele as a storyteller to tell the story. I don't know if anyone else could tell the story the way that he does, because for me, presenting that presenting this work in class is so powerful, because he has picked a young Black man filmmaker on the way to college with his mother to tell this story. That resonates so much with our students. The students that we have in our classes that are making media, that are making films, that are making videos, that are making TV. They understand how this is them. It mirrors them. Empathy is built so immediately in that beginning. And of course, Jordan Peele's narration is just inspired, like formidable. I mean, it's just amazing. This piece cinematically is also amazing. So there's a lot of things that I love that are just beautiful cinematically, but the story is really foundationally where we start to unpack the things that we've been doing in class, like labs about character development and names, how a character's name is really important. And one of the conversations this mother is having with her son while she's videotaping him old school with an old camcorder. Those of us that have used camcorders were like, I know how that works. But the thing I love about this is she's like, yes, when I want to document this for my granddaughter, Trinity. And Trinity as a name is so powerful to unpack and like discuss, like what was the choice in writing to name the granddaughter Trinity? And what are some of the themes that ties into with this story? So they're at a diner. They're on their way to a historical Black college. And they stop at a diner, of course, along the way in Virginia. And this is a really coming home for her. So it's interesting to hear the family dynamics within the story. But as we go ahead, we'll see that Jordan Peele takes a very, very relevant social topic and cultural construct and says, I'm just gonna put this here, and I'm going to take you on this journey, and I'm going to build your understanding of this character and his mother, this plight of this mother, and you're going to feel what it's like for 50 minutes to be Black in America. And I think ultimately it's so moving. I can't watch this episode without crying, and I showed a lot in class. So it's very, very powerful. So they head off after the diner, and the police officer that was in the diner pulls them over. She's recording, and when she rewinds time. So that's that really, like, the rewinding of time. Like, how often do you take a new path? How often do you get more chances? And how often does history repeat itself? So much of this is being just displayed for you in this episode. Time and time again, every time she tries a different way. Let's reason with the police officer in the diner. Let's make him understand how important my son is to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's abide the rule. Like, the rules that we think we need to abide by. That myself, I wouldn't think at a stop by a police officer that I would have to do. And so we have those discussions in class as well, because of my privilege as a white woman. And I see that, and I recognize that, and students are able to have these discussions because of this episode. And it just keeps going wrong. So eventually, what I love about this is after multiple attempts, and including the attempt, this part of the episode is where all of their reading kind of comes together. And this is where Jordan Peele takes that question about our fate, that human question, that question that we all ask: is everything preordained? Or are we able to, do we have control? Do we have free will to decide our own futures? And you see that theme again and again as they're attempting to get by this police officer and safely to college, and to arrive there, right? So in this particular scene, before the police officer shows up, the Damien is saying to his mother, I think that everything is, since the Big Bang, everything is set in motion, and there's nothing we can do to alter it. And you can see it on her face that she has to alter this path. She cannot lose her son. And so such a powerful, powerful message. And then again, there's the police officer. And there's, it's stepping in her way. And it's not until she makes a different choice, the choice that she's been avoiding, which is going back home to her community, that she really gets to see the power of what that can mean as a theme. So when she arrives home, you'll notice just even from production design, you have Black Lives Matter, you have this a very active family, and she's confronted with asking for help and really looking to the community that she's in the beginning been avoiding. And then again, this episode is so beautifully done. There's so many themes. Their route to get Damien to college, she asked her brother for help, is very reminiscent of the Underground Railroad. And so we're able to look at the way in which he has laid all of these themes at our feet to say, what, here you go. Do you have any empathy? And how are we going to change? How are we going to change history? How are we going to change the path that just keeps being placed in front of us? And then ultimately the end of the episode, where she is confronted at the gate by the police and the police officer and more police. It is the community of filmmakers. It's the community of cell phones. It's the community of coming together and saying change must happen that allows him to step forward and move into that space. And Damon is able to go to college. Of course, there's twists, as there always are in Twilight Zones, which Jordan Peele does beautifully. But the themes that he has incorporated into 15 minutes and moves you as an audience through an emotional path is just incredible. And then after all of these screenings, I then approach the students with the project. So the project outline for the Twilight Zone and the requirements for it, there's two groups. They create a 5 to 10 minute original concept Twilight Zone. You can do this project in two ways. You can use a secondary background character from an original episode. So someone who's been a secondary character that never speaks in one of the black and white episodes, you write their story. You write into the scene that you see them in, and you write out of the scene that you see them in. And I think that's a really great way to have students engage with the original Twilight Zones, but also think about what they want to say as social media change cultivators. So they pick, like I said, an original, and they develop the story. That story will then overlap. We call it the crossover. That's where the name Twilight Zone crossover comes from, is the crossing over of this character into that other world. It's very reminiscent of, even though they're anthology pieces, maybe the fifth dimension exists and all of these stories and all these characters are there. It is important that we understand the character in the new story arriving at the moment that we feature from the original episode. And then, of course, Rod Serling and Jordan Peele use the Twilight Zone anthologies to tell stories with social justice themes. This should remain evident in the new piece. So they have to question something that's really been important to them, and they see in their society that is something they want to change, that they want to push forward. And then, of course, their grade will be based on character development and how well they use composition, sound, and those and working in a collaborative group. And hearing different voices, because TV is always written in groups. And so I love that part of this project as well, is you're getting people to sit at a table and truly listen to each other. So now, fast forward to now, I have this huge screen and we're getting the cube at Ithaca. We are actually this semester going to use virtual production to put our original episodes into the virtual space, which I'm really excited for. And then the following semester, we'll use the virtual Unreal Engine 5 to take an original episode of the Twilight Zone, a scene from there, and construct that actual location and have characters cross. it just engages production students in really understanding the importance of the work, the importance of their voice. And I think that Jordan Peele's work is instrumental in that, and everything that he's doing, and not only what he did with the Twilight Zone, but in his movies as well. So once this is complete, it's hosted on the Rod Serling website. Jordan Peele was our 2019, the last time we gave the award. We haven't rebooted since COVID. He was our recipient of the Rod Serling Media Makers for Change Award at Ithaca College, and we just feel, such a connection to Jordan Peele's work and to keeping that relevant in our classrooms. And so I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening, and hopefully this assignment will help those of you that are, if you're students and want to do this, I encourage you to. And if you're, peers, colleagues, please, Edit Media has the full assignment. It's there for you to utilize and manipulate and make it your own. But I feel it's really an important thing that we share.
Wow. Wow. Okay, first of all, I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, we're doing all this right here, this whole assignment. I love the idea of taking a secondary character and giving them life, giving them a whole story, which then not forces. I mean, no one's ever really forced to watch the Twilight Zone. I mean, you don't have to twist anyone's arm to do it. It's just the greatest thing on television. So there's that. But it does require you to really dissect and pay attention to all the details of that particular episode, which then pays homage to the writers of that episode, to the directors, to the people who really thought about every angle of that piece. There, what I love about television in general, and about the Twilight Zone in particular, is that it's lean, right? Everything is in place with reason. And so then this exercise comes along with your brilliant self, and you're having us pay attention not only to the A story that's right in front of our face, but we have to really start to key in on all the elements in the background. And I think all the production designers and all the directors and all the writers will probably just embrace you so deeply for this particular exercise. In your experience, what has been one of the most engaging, dynamic takes on this exercise from your students? Like which episode did they draw from? Which character did they select? And has there been a situation where your socks were completely knocked off?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's never the same, right? I wanted, originally when I created the assignment too, I wanted them shooting in black and white, just to learn, even though we're in the digital realm, just to learn that contrast and like how you light properly in black and white. But the couple that people really like is like The Last Flight, which is one where a pilot in the world, I think World War I, lands at the base, and it's in the future. And because he survived, other people didn't. And so he's trying to figure out like where he is. And so there's that's one of the few episodes that one of the background characters is a woman in full military. And so I've had students pull that particular character. She doesn't speak. She's just walking out of the barracks, and they're like, we're going to write, like, where was she going? How'd she get there? Like, what's her story? Wow. And so they write that story. And then, and it's really interesting because you can do whatever you want with the character. They just have to end up coming out of that barracks and passing this pilot when he's running into the barracks, right? So it's really fun in that way.
Wow.
We've had Maple Street. That's always a fun one.
Yeah.
And trying to think of other popular. I've had something in almost every episode, but I would say the Last Flight and probably the Maple. I'm forgetting the exact title. It's either Maple
Yeah,
Street.
the one where all the people on Maple Street thought the alien invasion was coming, and it turned out they were part of an elaborate experiment to see mob mentality. And whew,
Yes, and that ties in. Like I used to show that one, and then show from Black Mirror. And this is before Jordan. This is before 2019. So this is before I had his Twilight Zones to build from. But there was a Black Mirror, the White Bear, I think it's called, and that has that mob mentality. So they kind of they work very well together, and kind of showing the modernization of that.
Which episode would you personally do this exercise on?
So now I've moved into color. I'm letting I'm back to where we haven't this semester we're in color. So I would actually love, in the episode I showed you, Replay is probably by far one of my favorite episodes, just because of its emotional impact on me. Like that is one of those episodes that I can't, like I said, not cry. And so there is at the diner, there is a waitress who comes over and serves pie. And I'm like, what's her story? I would love to do her story. And I think it would be really interesting. So that would be one. And if I have to do an original, if I was to do the black and white original, my favorite episode of the Twilight Zone is the stop at Willoughby Place. Yeah. So I love that because it has a Binghamton, like Rod Serling was born in Bingham, like he's from there, so it's very close to us. And I just love seeing things that kind of depict that about him. So I like that episode. I'd probably do a cross of that where the people in the town are just mingling at certain points.
Wow. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I think the episode that stays with me the most has to be the Midnight Sun. That episode, I don't know why, it's just so haunting. When you think about the earth moving. Okay, I think what it is, first of all, is that I love disaster films. Anytime the earth fights back for itself, a volcano explosion, asteroids coming, when we go to the movies and we see a preview for a movie like a world disaster, the world's going to fight back and save itself, or asteroids coming, my wife looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you're so excited." And I'm like, I am. And I don't know what it is about that, but I love those types of, but at any rate, with Midnight Sun, it is one of those ones where you find yourself going, what would you do? Like, you become a character in that piece. And I think that's why I do like the disaster films and disaster shows so much, because I go, what would we do? Like, who would we call first? Where would we go? How would we escape it? And my answer is always the same. I'm just going to pull up a lawn chair and just watch, because how are you going to outrun a tidal wave, right? So with Midnight Sun, there's the character that comes in, the guy who comes in, he seems like a bad guy because he has a gun, but at the end of the day, everyone's just trying to figure out how to survive at this point. And he mentioned his wife, and I suspect he had a family. And at this point, he's alone. And I would do this exercise on how he got to that point. What drove him to such a place where after he pulled the gun and he took the last of their water and their peach juice, he looked at them and you could see that there was so much remorse, but at the same time, it's where we were. And it's where he is at that point. And I would love to maybe track his story a little bit deeper. Such an amazing exercise and opportunity. And I will be asking Edit Media and you if we can borrow that here at Prairie View. I think it would be an amazing exercise to incorporate.
Yeah, and there's I absolutely, that's one of the, I want people to utilize it. And the archives, I also have, and I'll share those too. It's all on Edit Media in the PowerPoint that I have there. We have Rod Serling's archive, but there's also other archives that you can use kind of in the same way. So I've also, done things with Outer Limits. Like I've tried to do some pieces with Outer Limits. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different opportunities to use archive and archive footage, because then you can start to pull like things that are in public domain. Like I need sailboats on a lake in the middle of the winter. It's like, well, it's in black and white. Here you go. And then they really also have that opportunity as well.
Yeah. I suspect too, the opportunity for the students to work in black and white gives them a whole set of a new way of thinking about their storytelling, because it isn't just enough to just, in post production, take all the color out. Like you have to shoot with black and white in mind. How does that impact, if students choose to go that route, how has that impact your pedagogy in the classroom in real time?
Well, so everything, I'm glad you asked that, because everything that I do in their labs building up to them doing actual projects. So we do a poem project first, where they develop a character and they have to speak in the character's voice and write a poem, which then ties into how they're going to write narration for a Twilight Zone. So I like that correlation. And then when they do color and how color affects or tone with their mood boards, I then say, okay, now I want you, when you hand in the mood board for your poem, I want you to put it all in black and white and look at what the range actually is. Are you really affinity, or are you really high contrast? Like what are you actually drawn to if you were shooting this in black and white? What do textures look like? Does that yellow shirt even look like what's the saturation of it? So because I actually have them set the cameras to black and white when they shoot. Then they're seeing everything in their viewfinder in black and white, and they're going, oh I need the costume to be different, because they're just blending into the wall. Whereas with color, you have a little bit more range with that, and I think it really does amplify things. They also, I think, in black and white, start to realize that from scene to scene, you can go really high contrast in those high impact moments, and then really flatten things out when you want the scene to be soft. And so they're starting to notice that. And by examining like Twilight Zones and then looking at Jordan Peele's work, and then taking Jordan Peele's work and changing it to black and white and looking at it, I'm like, now look at high concept cinematography in black and white, and look at what they had in 1959. Like, it's a different look.
It definitely gives them a different sensibility. It definitely will. I mean, granted, we even with making those changes within the technology in production, we still are leaps and bounds in a very different place than where they were in the 1950s filming, that content. So then moving forward to Jordan Peele's work, present day, I think with the current, or with the updated version of the Twilight Zone, what I love about the work is Peele's respect for the original. You see these Easter eggs throughout various episodes, and you go, "Oh, this is so much fun!" And you can see the love that he has for the original source material. What would be what do I say? What would be some of the more innovative ways we could take original source material, original works, and really infuse innovative ideas? What would, if you had an opportunity to do what Jordan Peele has done with the Twilight Zone, if you had an opportunity, if you had a budget and someone said, hey, do something really different and dynamic with original IP and give us something new, tell me about what choices you would make. What type of show would you create? What original IP would you draw from to give us something new and innovative?
Who I think now with virtual production, the thing I'm really excited about and we're trying to do is being able to take this concept of the fifth dimension and actually making a fifth dimension, almost like the Marvel universe, but for the Twilight Zone. So you have Jordan Peele's work crossing over original content, and the first of Rod Serling's episodes, because we can use the the metahumans in Unreal Engine 5 and make them look like people that are probably not with us at this point. They were background characters, older background characters in 1959, and really kind of bring them in to that, that thought of that Easter egg, but more importantly, like how stories and really society, the themes that he examines about society, how it was examined then, like through Rod Serling's lens, and how Jordan Peele has said, okay, well, we're still dealing with that. Like this is still an issue, and now I'm able to put it forward. But I think I would want to kind of infuse the two, but using virtual production as well, to insert characters into these scenarios, and examine how they were relevant for that time, and then what they've kind of evolved to now. Because I think that Rod Serling did attempt in many of his shows to examine race but do it. I say to students, I'm like, you hide the peas at the time into the mashed potatoes for the audience. So the audience is like, I love mashed potatoes. They don't know they're getting vegetables at the same time. Like,
exactly.
Like how do you examine something that is so? And I think today people are just like, oh, I know where you're going, and they change the channel, or their algorithm just changes them off of that. They never see it in their feed. Like, how do you touch an audience that is really ready to just not hear another voice? And so that would be the kind of show I'd want to make, is something that gives a voice that people can actually hear, and make a difference. I think that
I suspect. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think that would fulfill. I would feel really honored to do that kind of work.
Yeah, I suspect Jordan Peele is Rod Serling's greatest hope, in a sense, that no one was brave enough to touch a lot of the themes and issues that Serling used television as an instrument to amplify. I mean, we have to also consider that in the late 1950s and into the 60s, when the Twilight Zone was airing, first run, we're looking at the United States in a grave state of apartheid. Jim Crow in the South was just devastating an entire community of people across the land. And here's Rod Serling saying, yeah, I'm going to show you a character named Boley, who's a boxer and is a hero. And this young boy he's black boy magic before we knew what black boy magic could be, right? And just amplifying the goodness in people across all colors. And so this is the magic of Rod Serling, and certainly having someone like Jordan Peele, and what you've communicated through your research and what the students are doing, and even your selection of how you would be innovative. I think this is all, it all has Serling's fingerprints all over it. I am going to thank you right now for participating in this talk. I have this amazing opportunity that's sitting in my TV studio right now, which means I am actually going to have to cut this session a little bit short, because we have Mark Grant, the sports news director for CBS Sports, who's actually coming into town to film the, he's directing the football game on Sunday between the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. He's the first African-American sports news director at CBS, and he is actually speaking with our students. He's giving us some time today. And so that's happening right behind me in the room next door. He's going to begin at 11 o'clock. And I wish my teleporting skills had kicked in already. I
wish my teleporting skills would allow me to teleport to you, so that I could also partake in that conversation as well. It would be amazing.
Man, they were supposed to kick in about 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, teleporting? Why hasn't it started yet? All of our other superpowers have kicked in. Yes, Chrissy?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, you know, so
yeah,
you know, being teachers, I mean, I feel like that has to require some beyond human skill. But I want to thank you so much for being a part of the virtual symposium and presenting your most brilliant work. And trust me when I say we will be participating in this work as well.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you and all of this wonderful work. The symposium is amazing. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's mine. Pleasure's mine. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this session up so that we can hop into the studio. I'm going to ask Mr. Grant if we can actually broadcast this presentation. But chances are this is going to be a special engagement for our students here at PV. But we will share with you more at noon today. At noon today, we will be back with a discussion on best practices for innovative teaching in media production. We're going to have board members from the University Film and Video Association, members from Edit Media, which you've heard Chrissy refer to a few times during her presentation today, as well as folks from the Jefferson School, the African American Heritage Center out of Charlottesville, Virginia, and the Propel Center in Atlanta, Georgia. They're all talking today at 12 noon about best practices for inclusive. I said innovative earlier, but that also is innovative, is inclusive teaching in media production. We're looking at how to incorporate more HBCUs into the work that the University Film and Video Association does. And you're going to join us today at noon to have a roundtable discussion on how we can fulfill that with organizations that are actively supporting arts education, film education, very particularly. I want to thank you again for joining us, and come back and see us at noon. If you want to see any of our programming, you want to go to KPVU-TV.org/symposium, where you can see all of the footage from yesterday, all of the programming from today, and we will be back in about an hour. All right. Thanks. See y'all. Bye.